It's just romantic. The 13 flat 9 is what we're looking at this month, okay? I'm going to briefly give you a little verbal description of how I kind of hear the emotion and the color of this tonality. Then I'm going to try and play a little bit for you so you can actually hear it in practice. I'm going to point it out. I want to get that out of the way first because the ear is where we should always start. No matter what music concept we're learning or talking about, we should always start with emotions and colors and listening, right? The visceral experience. Then we'll jump back a few steps to theory. We'll explain what it is, and then we'll break down what I refer to as the must-know material. We'll get to that in a minute, but first I just want to talk about the 13 flat 9, the emotions and the colors. It's just romantic. It's lovely. It's just, there's something so, it's like a lilt, like a pause in the music. Listen to this. Every time I hear this chord, this is the 13 flat 9. Every time I hear this, I almost get the sensation like I'm ballroom dancing with someone and there's a pause in the music, and right as the music kind of has this brief pause, this fermata, before the conductor brings the orchestra back in, right before they bring him back in at the pause, I kind of dip my dance partner. And then things continue moving, right, as we move to the one chord. It's just so romantic, so heartfelt, so lush and colorful and sweet. Once you get used to this sound, you'll just hear it on records. Like, it's so obvious. You can hear a major triad versus a minor triad, right? Most people, if you've been playing for a little short while, you can hear the difference between major and minor, happy and sad. This chord is maybe as recognizable to my ear, and hopefully if it's not already for you, by the end of this month it will be. It's that unique. And you'll hear it all over the place once you get used to it. Okay. I feel that it works best as a 5 chord, a dominant 5 chord resolving to a major 1. There are other ways it can work. I might even point one or two out, but I think that's the best, most organic, fluid use for it, which means that any tune that has a 5 chord moving to a major 1, you can apply this tonality to that tune. Autumn Leaves, I'll play it in E minor because that's probably where most people know it. Starts on A minor. Right, the next chord is D7, it's a dominant that resolves to the 1, to G major. Right? You hear it? So that's A minor, D13 flat 9, G major 7. Here's an interesting use for it that you might not expect or think of. But after the G major 7, we're going to the 4 chord, to C major 7. So we can actually treat G major as G dominant, right? Because it's functionally, it's moving us to the 4 chord, to C. So we can actually treat G as a dominant and make it a G13 flat 9 also. So we can have A minor to D13 flat 9 to G13 flat 9. It's pretty out sound, but it resolves kind of beautifully to C major. I hear that a pause in it. I mean, I actually did stop to explain it. I'm just trying to point out the color of it. It's not just a D7, it's a D13 flat 9. We'll talk more about what that actually means for chord voicings and melody as we move through this, this video and the PDFs. Here's the G13 flat 9 again. Just little ideas. Stella by Starlight. A7, C minor. Right, you feel it almost like wants you to just pause on it for a minute. So let's talk about what this chord is actually made of, right? Our melodic triad approach, the theory behind it, so that we can actually get in and start building voicings and melodic ideas. Remember, it all comes from pianistic construction, okay? So if you look in the PDF that goes along with these videos, you can actually see the piano diagram with the blue dots that show the left hand fingers and the orange or red dots that show the right hand fingers. The theory for this chord is that we're going to play C7 in the left hand, just a basic shell voicing, 1 3 7, C, E, B flat. That's it. Super basic, about as basic a chord as we have in jazz, 1 3 flat 7. And then in the right hand, we're going to put an A major triad. And if you have access to a piano, I cannot recommend enough. Go play this. Even if you don't know the names of the notes, if you have a friend or, you know, if you're a music student and there's a practice room and there's a piano there, even if you don't know the names of the notes, just look at the black and white keys in the diagram and just find the right keys on the piano and hit that chord. Okay, you don't have to play it in a tune, just listen to the sound of those two very simple ingredients when they interact together. That's the whole starting point for what we do. Okay, it's trying to steal that piano approach and get it onto the fretboard. And it's just two of the most basic ingredients possible: a simple shell voicing and a major triad, and that's it. Okay, everything we're going to talk about for the rest of these videos and the PDF has to do with one or the other, but we're going to dig very deep into what this actually means for us harmonically and melodically. So the very first thing we have to do is figure out a way to get this 6-note shell voicing triad chord onto the guitar. Okay? Actually, let me take a step back. The very first thing we need to do is understand the relationship between those two so that we can transpose it to other keys. Then we can put it on the guitar. So if we're thinking C7 with an A major triad, this is left hand, right hand, or sometimes what I refer to as the harmonic structure and the melodic structure. Okay? It's meant to over time become one unit, but it's helpful to think of them separately at the beginning. Well, A, the A major triad, the root note of that triad, A, if you count up from C, A is the 6th, right? It's the 6th scale tone, C, D, E, F, G, A. So when I was studying with my teacher, Stefan, he would call this chord a T6 chord, okay? Uppercase T, 6. The uppercase means major, T is short for triad. So it's just a very quick shorthand way of saying whatever is happening here in the chord, build a major triad on the 6th degree. The reason that's so helpful is that now we can transpose to any key very quickly. Okay? Fortunately for us, we play guitar, so once we learn to see the shapes, we don't necessarily have to think about what the triads are. We can just look at our geometry, but still very important to memorize that. The 13 flat 9 tonality is T6. If we're playing a C13 flat 9, C7 in the left hand, the 6th of C is A. Okay, A major. If we're doing it in G, G13 flat 9, the 6th of G is E, E major triad. Okay? Whatever key we go into, that's how we figure it out. Now, how do we get this from the piano onto the guitar to be our starting point for everything we're going to do this month? Left hand, the shell voicing, is always underneath the right hand triad, harmony, melody, okay? Foundation, pretty colorful stuff. So all we're gonna do is take our two hands and move them over like this. The bottom three strings of our guitar, we wanna get the shell voicing onto, 1, 3, flat, 7, and the top three strings, we're gonna put the melodic triad. It's always gonna stay like that. So as we move up the fretboard and invert the triads, the major triads on the top three strings, the shell voicings are always gonna stay underneath the triad. So this is not, these are not inversions in the traditional classical sense where all the notes are being jumbled equally. These are two different structures. Okay, we can invert the top structure, and sometimes the bottom structure changes a little bit as well, but it always stays bottom and top, harmony, melody, left hand, right hand. So check this out. That's an A major triad. Okay. If you're not that comfortable with your triads, just make sure you're looking at the PDF, because this is directly notated and tabbed out in the PDF for this, under the must know section. There's A major, A major, A major, and then the octave. Always on the top three strings. Really basic. All the stuff I was playing earlier with Stella by Starlight, Autumn Leaves, it's actually based around these shapes. Okay. Now underneath each of those triads, our goal, we're not piano players, we don't have 10 fingers, so it's not always possible, but our goal is to get the C, E, and B flat note on the bottom three strings. The 1, 3, flat, 7 of the C7 chord. Okay. This first shape, it's not possible to get all three right off the bat. We're always going to run into problems. There are ways around it. The way that I wrote out in the PDF is just to leave the root note out. So it's a rootless voicing. 1, 2, 2, 2, open. There's the third and the 7, flat 7, major third, B flat, E, A major up on top. Just because it's rootless doesn't mean we can never play a root. Like let's say we want to play this in the key of G, I could hit a G note, very similar to like a piano player hitting a really low note on the keyboard and then filling in a chord up above it. We can kind of imply the whole tonality by breaking it apart. Or B flat. Resolved to a major 1. Hopefully you heard that kind of romantic lilt in the music, and then it kept moving. So that's the first voicing. The next one, still not possible. None of these three inversions happen to be completely possible, but there's always ways around it. Here's A major. The nearest shell voicing would be right here, but we only have, well, some of you guys might actually. That's it. It's not very comfortable, so I'm not going to do that again because I don't want to hurt myself, but I'm playing C, E, B flat, A by using my thumb. I don't want to do that, so instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of one of our notes. We never get rid of one of the triad notes. This is the most important thing. I know we're trained to think that the chord 1, 3, 5, 7 is the most important thing. It's this. Okay. This stuff is important too, but it's okay to sacrifice this if we know how to. If we keep the A major triad where it is, let's think about this for a second. A, C sharp, E, that E note is part of the C7 shell voicing, right? It's the third of C. I know we're talking about two different things right now. We're talking about A major and C7. The E note that's in this triad, the fifth of this triad, E, is the third of this chord. So it's already present. So I'm just going to leave that note out. I would have left it out in this first position in order to get the C note, but it still wouldn't be possible. But in this position, it is possible. So here's root, flat 7, C and B flat, and the A major triad up on top. And again, right away, we can hear that very romantic. going to do the same exact thing. Root, flat 7, A major triad. If you don't like using your thumb, you can just bar across. And then we're back to the octave. Here's another example where you can play the root, and then the voicing, you can just break it apart. So I'm not playing it as one full chord, but we can still pull it off, okay? This is the starting point of everything. We're going to build smaller chord voicings, we're going to build melodic ideas, we're going to build arpeggios, scales, triad pairs. All sorts of stuff are going to come from this. Understanding the harmonic structure and the melodic structure, how they interact. Okay? If you know your basic shell voicings and your basic triad shapes, that's the must know. Okay? We're going to take it one step further and talk about how to improvise lines and melodies that relate to these harmonic sounds. Okay? Instead of using some type of C scale, like a half whole diminished, or chord tones, we're going to prioritize the A major triad. That's why I call it the melodic structure. Our goal for now, for the must know, is to learn to hear the A note as what I call melodic do. Okay, that means the root note of the melody. I have a sustain pedal I'm going to use to cheat just a little bit. Notice how even down low in the lowest register of the instrument, that A note feels like a resolution, like home bass. And there's the resolution to the major one. Okay, so that has to do with the fact that our melody is being governed by the A major triad. In order to create something more interesting than just arpeggiating a triad, we're going to add a note to it. Call that our quadratonic. In the PDF, I explain why I'm picking this, so I'm not going to explain it here. But our primary tension note, which gives us our primary quadratonic, is tension flat 2. And that flat 2 is in relationship to A major. So I'm thinking about and playing A major with a B flat note added. And that B flat note is meant to be used melodically as a tension note. Check this out. Here's just a basic C7 shell. Right? A, B flat, A, B flat, A. That B flat wants to pull down to A. If you understand that, like, not just intellectually, but in your ear, and can execute simple phrases with it, you can play over 5 ones inside of tunes and sound fantastic. You don't have to outline the changes. You don't have to run the chord tones or noodle inside of a scale looking for things. Let's go back to one of the tunes I was mentioning before. Maybe I'll do Autumn Leaves. That's root, tension flat 2. You hear the romantic, that like little pause in the music. To G major, to C major. Okay. Let's try making the G major into the G13 flat 9. So now we're going to kind of get out a little bit, but our melody is going to have a very intense sense of direction and simplicity to it. I'll use my sustain pedal so you can hear these a little bit more clearly. Okay, that's the root note of my triad, tension flat 2. Resolving to C major. Okay, hopefully you can kind of hear the simplicity and the directness that our phrases can have just by playing these very simple quadratonic ideas. They're not, don't think of them as scales, think of them as a triad with a tension note. The whole point is to create phrases. For A minor, I'm going to play through it again. For A minor, I'm going to use a very simple quadratonic. I'm going to use the A minor triad, tension 2, and then I'm going to follow all the 13 flat 9s for the next chords like I just talked about. It's just melody. It doesn't sound like a scale, it doesn't sound like I'm outlining anything. It was a little out for a minute when I went to that G7. This is the must know. It gives us really lush pianistic chord voicings, and it gives us really direct phrases. And that's why I call it the must know, because if you had, let's say, 5 or 10 or 12 tonalities that you could just do this with, you could play ballads, you could play Latin, you could play bebop, you could play modern, you could play swing, you could play anything you wanted to, and it'll sound just monstrous, just perfect, okay? If you want to continue, first of all, I should point out, I spent the first 6 to 12 months of my learning experience with melodic triads just on this type of stuff before I started exploring anything else that does get covered in the PDF. Which this is the majority of the rest of the majority of the PDF is things that come after it, but this is a really good starting point. So if you're within the first 3 to 6 to 12 months of studying with us, I would recommend that you stay here. Even if you're an advanced player, make sure that you understand this piano idea, that you can put the voicings on the guitar, that you can find those phrases and melodies, and that you can execute it in different keys by just applying it to simple tunes, okay? You can create a ton of music just with this. Everything else is icing. Again, if you're in the private community, you can just download the PDF. It should be somewhere on the screen, probably over on that side, I think. But just click the download button. If you're watching the free videos, you can purchase a copy of the PDF. There should be a link somewhere for that as well. In the next video, I'm going to play through all the different examples from each of the different sections of the PDF. So if you don't have a copy of the PDF, start with this concept, right? T6, A major triad over C7. Feel free to just take that and run with it and explore it and try and find your own voicings. Okay? If you just want to play around with the theory and explore, have at it. It's T6, major triad built on the 6th over a dominant chord, and then the primary quadratonic for creating melody is whatever that triad is in whatever key, add the tension flat 2, and use it as a tension note. It has a very particular emotion to it. Okay? Try and develop your ear to hear it and your phrasing to execute it. The following video, if you're just watching the free stuff and you don't want to download the PDF, you'll just get more ear training. You'll just hear all the different possibilities of ways to execute this stuff. Other tension notes, bebop scale ideas, triad pairs, liquid harmony, which is harmony that has moving lines inside of it. I'm going to play through that in the video, and then the private community, there's going to be a bonus video where I'm going to break down each of the examples and show you exactly, it's already pretty much explained in the PDF, but I'm going to kind of walk through every note, every voicing, so you guys can understand how all of those ideas, as advanced as they might sound, just come from either the C7 shell or the A major triad, and in other keys also. Okay? Thanks for watching. Happy practicing.